first logic, experts can see into the future. Now this one's very simple. I have this water bottle here. This is a key to life. Not because this is water and everyone needs water, but because this is simple. Why is it simple? Because everybody is an expert in this situation. If I release this bottle, which way is it going? Hopefully everybody said down. Hopefully you didn't have to think about it because it's a very simple situation here. It's because we understand the law of gravity that if I release this 100 times, will the bottle ever stay right here? Will it ever go up? And of course the answer is no, because we all understand the law of gravity. So we all, now being experts, can see into the future. We actually know what's going to happen even before I run the 100 tests. And this is a key to understanding expertise. When someone understands what's going on, there's a couple of things. They need very little information to be able to look and see the end. You don't have to know what object I'm holding. You don't have to know like the parameters of the diagram of it. You don't have to know what the dimensions are. You don't have to know all the laws of physics. You don't even have to know the exact equation of law of gravity. And I can be anywhere in the world and you know exactly which way this bottle is going. Now, every project is very similar to this. You have what we call an event. Every project is an event. You have initial conditions and you have final conditions. An expert will be able to, at the very beginning, because they are experts, they have all the information, they understand what's going on, they can actually predict and tell you what's going to happen, even without knowing all the information. And we've seen this in life. We see it with the stock market. People with more information on companies, they're able to best predict when to buy and sell stocks. That's partly why insider trading is illegal, because people with that much information, they can actually know exactly what's going to happen. You see this with sports, you see this with everything. The more information someone has, the more they can predict the future. This is something experts can do. And they can actually even see into the future on your project with very little information. Why? Because like we understand the law of gravity, experts understand natural laws in projects, that when they get a little bit of understanding of what's going on, they're able to exactly know what's going to happen without having all the details. Now that's the first logic. The second, experts minimize thinking. Now this one's a little counterintuitive. I actually mentor many high school students. We started a nonprofit called the Leadership Society of Arizona. We go out and we teach a lot of high school kids the exact same business principles we're teaching you, because we found out if you teach them when they're young, they learn the correct way. And I tell all of my students, don't think. And they say, don't think. I say, don't use your mind. They said, why don't you want us to use our mind? All of our teachers are telling us to think. This is how we're supposed to learn. And I let them know, all intelligent people try to minimize their thinking, try to minimize how much they use their mind. And I'm going to take you through this real quick so you understand. First, we want to know, how powerful is the brain? A lot of people say it's very powerful. But actually, when you look at psychologists, this is what you find out. First thing they find out is human beings, when we see, we don't see accurately. We see things according to what's going to protect us. And so this is kind of the development of sight. I don't know how many of you could tell that there is actually a tiger in this picture, but that's why we developed being able to see in color, so we could protect ourselves and know when there is danger. When we actually test our eyesight, a lot of people, they're looking at the top and the bottom color. It looks different. But actually, if you just put a simple medium there, you can start to realize that they're actually the same color. It's the same thing with these two different cube colors. They look different because of the shading around them, but that's because our eyesight is bad. They're actually the same color. And of course, we have the very known, I think it's supposed to be what, white and gold or blue and black, something like that. I can only see blue and black. So for those of you who see other colors, I can't see it. Now, this other psychologist found out that people have very low attention spans. And what this person found out is that people miss a lot when they're looking. I don't know how many of you noticed, but the title of the slide changed. And so I'm going to go back here. If you look at the title of the slide, if I go back, this is what it started out as. But because our focus is only drawn to one thing, it's very hard for us to actually see everything going on. But this next psychologist, what she found out was that in life, people actually remember things wrong, and they can remember things that are inaccurate. So she'd bring people in, show them this little flyer with Bugs Bunny at the Disneyland Resort. A lot of people say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, the issue is Bugs Bunny is not at Disneyland. It's Warner Brothers. But these people would come in, and as she showed them this flyer, they would begin to tell her their childhood memories and how they would meet and even shake Bugs Bunny's hand and get on his lap while they were younger. And what she found out is most people, they remember things wrong. This researcher found out that most of our decisions are made off of emotions and our feel of a situation. Meaning, if we went to Burger King and found $20, we're going to think, Burger King's my favorite, their food is awesome. Even though their food might not be any different than anyone else, but if you went to McDonald's and you got robbed, then their food automatically is not very good, right? It's because you remember things according to how you feel, not according to actually what you know and what's actually going on. It's the same thing with our bias. The psychologist found out most people have a bias. If you choose something, you look at all the positives. Everything else, you look at the negatives. You have this optimism bias they found out that people have. Smoking kills, you might know that, but you're believing that you're different, that you're that 5%, 10% of people that will not have any issue with smoking their whole life. Of course, you have your self-serving bias. When something goes really well, of course it's because of you. When something doesn't go well, of course it's because of everything and the chair you're sitting on that day. So what does all of this mean? Basically, when you look at all the research of the mind, you start to figure out we don't see right, we don't pay attention well, we don't remember well, we don't process information well, we don't make decisions well. The mind is actually flawed. And so now let's start looking at this. One of the things Sugatra Mitra, he's an educator, found out that when people start thinking too much, they get stressed. And when they get stressed, he found out there's a place in the back of the head that shuts off all learning capability. So he realized the more someone uses their mind, actually the less they learn, which is an amazing thing. As they start to look at people who are very good at what they do, they measure the top 1,500 CEOs, measure their brain, found out the CEOs are more productive, more creative, more innovative when they're in what they call the flow state. This is a state when their mind is largely shut off, that they're actually not thinking. You see this in sports. They practice and practice, and when they get on the field, they don't have to think about what they're going to do, how they're going to hit or shoot. Their body just knows it. When you look at all the experts, all the people who become very good at what they do, they're always trying to minimize their thinking, minimize their use on the mind. You can see this in many people wearing the same type of clothes every day, so they don't have to make a decision on it. They make things very simple, so they don't have to think. This is Scott Flansburgh. He's a human calculator. He can do complex mathematical calculations quicker than a calculator can. When they measured his brain, inactive. In fact, everything shuts off but his visual portion. And what he tells people is when he does math, he doesn't have to think about it. He just sees the answer. And this is much like anyone who's really an expert in anything. They don't have to think. They just know it. What they find out is when things are simple, when they don't have to think about it, do you have more risk or less risk when things are simple? Of course, you have less risk. You know exactly what's going on. Do you have to make more decisions or less decisions when things are simple? Less decisions. Because there's only one option here. You only make a decision when you think there's two options. Hopefully you don't think there's two options in which way this is going to fall, right? Here's a decision-making case study. They measured a lot of professionals and making decisions on which contractor will perform better. This was done in the Netherlands. What they did was they created a computer program to go against these professionals. And this is what they found out. Perfect score is 0. They found out that the computer scored the best. But amazingly, the students who knew nothing actually scored better than the professionals did. And the professionals didn't score much better than the randomly generated answers. It's an amazing study. But this is what they found out. That when people start using their head too much, they start thinking too much and trying to use their own experiences on things, they actually end up not being able to understand what's going on, and they make the wrong decisions. So it's important to realize that experts minimize thinking. The impact of this means what? They're going to communicate less. They're going to minimize collaboration. They're going to minimize their decision making. And where an expert is, you won't see a lot of this. When this person knows what they're going to do, they don't have to do any of this. Because the more people are doing this, does it make things more simple or more complicated? More complicated. And you only have to think when things get complicated, right? And this is a big issue with the industry today. Okay, the third. I'm going to use a story for this one. This is Boeing's plane. Around the time of World War II, they made it for the military. It's a bomber, the 299. Everybody knew that this was the highest quality product that they could get compared to any other plane that the government could buy for the military. They were experts. Boeing was an expert at making planes, especially this bomber. But what ends up happening? Everybody knew they were going to get the contract, but the day of the test run, the pilot actually crashes the plane right when he starts to lift off. The pilot ends up dying, the plane goes up in flames, and they no longer get this contract. An investigation started to happen. They found out a locking mechanism was stuck on the plane. Their contract went to Douglas, but they continued to research the issue of the plane because it was such a high quality product. They said, well, we need to train our pilots better, and that's why this plane crashed. But the test pilot for the plane was the military's top pilot. So they said it can't be that we need more training because he was the top. So what they ended up doing and what Boeing ended up finding out is they had to make it simple for their client. And this is what they did. They made a checklist for every pilot who got in their plane to go over the checklist when they started, when they took off, everything. This actually became a standard in many industries to make a checklist because it makes it what? It makes it simple. And experts realize the only risk they have is that people who are not experts at what they do is going to mess it up. So they realize they have to make it simple for everyone else. And that's what happened. Once it became simple for the military, this is what ended up happening. The Douglas plane, they never did a bombing run. They weren't very good bombers. And the Boeing plane, it became the B-17 Flying Fortress. One of the main reasons why we're able to do so much damage in the US to the other countries we're against in World War II without losing many lives. This is what happens when experts are on a project. They realize that even if they do a great work, even if they're experts and everything is simple to them, if they don't make it simple to their clients and everybody else, then they're going to have risk on their project. So that's the third logic. Experts make it simple. And let me give you some examples here. See, not all stakeholders are going to understand the right-hand side, the blueprints, the diagrams. But anybody's going to understand if that's what the bridge looks like when it's done, that's what I like. And if, as long as it's stable, obeys all protocols, that's what I'm looking for. See, clients, they need something that's very simple, non-technical. They don't need to see all the technical details. That's for the expert to understand. And so experts know they have to make it like the left-hand side. Everything they do has to be simple. It can't be technical. It can't require thinking of anyone else. Now, this is another kind of example here. Roofing. Normally, the metrics we do is very technical. They're KPIs is what we call them, right? Tensile strength is 800 PSI for the material of our roofing system. What does that mean? Is that going to prevent my roof from leaking if I'm an owner? To be honest with you, nobody knows. Nobody to this day will know if 800 PSI is enough to stop a roof from leaking. It's a pretty high PSI, but no one knows what that number really means in terms of performance. On the right-hand side, you can see the metrics here. These are what we call non-technical symptoms. That if I know the contractor that's building my roof has 65 customers that will vouch for them, 25 on average, the roof age of these customers are 25 years of age, and only 99% of them leak, I know that this roofing contractor is going to do a great job, right? These are metrics I can understand. Okay, this is the last piece of logic for you, the fourth logic. As experts have no risk. They focus on risks that they don't control. Now, this is a key. See, here we have the expert and the non-expert. And you need to realize that the non-expert is what we call blind. They can't see because they actually don't have the expertise to be able to look into the future. When someone is blind, the only person they can see is who? It's themselves. The non-expert is only going to worry about what the technical details, because that's all they can see. They're just worried about being able to do their part correctly. Now, the expert on the other side, this is what we call visionary, because not only do they don't have to worry about themselves, they could do their job with their eyes closed. The only thing they're worried about is looking into the future. When you see into the future, you see everybody else. That's the only thing that's going to cause risk on their project is people who don't know what's going on, who they can't control. That's the only risk they're worried about. They're not worried about themselves and their technical understanding and how they're going to do it. They're worried about how their system's going to integrate with the client's system. They're worried about what the client's going to do when they get their system to make sure the client knows the right steps on how to use their system. One of the things I do have to tell you is when you look at the non-expert, they're only focused on the technical. So on your project, if you're only focused on the technical pieces of the project, who are you more likely to attract? The expert or the non-expert? And of course, you're going to attract all the non-experts. Why? Because when you start relaying technical information to vendors, you're basically allowing people who have no idea on what to do to come into your project because you're giving them the technical information they need. When we tell clients when they go out to get experts, we tell them, don't tell them anything. Just tell them you need a roof. You want it to last long, you want to have minimal maintenance on it, and you never want it to leak. If they're an expert, they know exactly what type of roof you need. And not only that, remember, they will make it simple for you. So you don't have to make a decision on it. You know exactly that that's what you need.
Thanks for watching. To see the rest of this presentation or more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon below. Leave us a comment if you have any questions or you have any topics you'd like us to explore in the future. Thanks, and we'll see you around.